According to the CDC's numbers in 2017, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death among Americans, self-inflicted harm, coming in somewhere like 47,000 people. Now, I'm not trying to say the CDC is our friend, but it's a good starting point, right? Like, obviously, a lot of people out there commit suicide. And I feel it's worth asking not only like why they commit suicide, but like the better question is like, what are the underlying emotional conditions that contribute to a person committing suicide? And what does God think about a person committing suicide? Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the layers of emotions, and I want to go through them real quick again before we start talking about where we get stuck in these layers and how that relates to suicide. Okay, and then I'll share some personal examples from my own life that can hopefully that you can recognize the principles and then potentially apply that to your own life. Okay, so our emotions exist in layers, like an onion, and they are thick and they are heavy and dense. Okay, now at the top here, you oftentimes have apathy or depression. Depression or apathy covers rage or anger. Okay, if you are watching this video, you definitely have anger inside of you. You just don't want to admit it, you know? Maybe you are admitting it, which is great, but if you're sitting there saying like, well, I don't feel angry, it's worth investigating. Is there something inside of you that you are not currently aware of? Okay? Our addiction is the next layer down, okay? So addiction can be anything. It can be a physical substance. It can be a feeling. It can be sex. It can be food. It can be wanting someone to agree with you, okay? That's a big one. A lot of people have that addiction, that like other people meet their worldview. Now, we'll talk more about that in other videos and how that applies to this place that we're in, but we're gonna keep going with this for now, okay? So the addictions actually cover our terror or fear that we do not want to feel. Because like, if you think about it, it is the fear inside of us that is leveraged against us to get us to comply or to live in certain ways. That we want other people to care for us. And this actually, because we so don't want to feel this, that this actually becomes what people think is a virtue. Terror is not a virtue. Terror is a cover emotion for the real causal emotion, which is grief or intense sadness. Now, I could use different terms for all this stuff, and I have in the past, right? Like I could say sadness is at our root, which is covered with fear. Our fears are held down by us engaging in our addictions, okay? When our addictions are not met, we experience anger, okay? And then when our anger becomes suppressed and we are not allowed to express that, or we don't feel we can express that, we go into depression. I'm using these terms here because these are more intense terms. And that's what this is. Like, I'm up here making these videos, having a good time because I love telling the truth. But make no mistake about it, when you start going through this stuff, it is going to be painful. It is going to suck. And you are going to feel like shit. But that's courage. Because if we understand the principles of how our soul operates, which is that our soul-based false beliefs about love, according to the Creator's view, condense into our spirit body and create blockages, which then further condense into our physical body and manifest as physical disease. So, and that, allow yourself to imagine this, okay? If this is true, and you've got any kind of physical disease, you've got huge amounts of suppressed emotion. Huge. If let's say you're a 20-year-old person watching this video, you are going to have potentially a much easier time working through this stuff than if you're a 65-year-old person watching this video. Mostly because the older you are and the longer you've been here, the more indoctrinated you are as to all the lies that are propagated in this place. We have the ability to heal ourselves by healing our soul, by feeling out our grief. And when we feel out our grief, if we choose to involve the Creator in this process, she will share her love with us. And that's where we're heading for, right? That's the goal, to get down there, okay? Now, let's say I want to kill myself. Where does that fall on these layers of emotions, okay? Well, let's go through this real quick. Cycling through cover emotions. What's a cover emotion? A cover emotion is anything that's not a causal emotion. So terror is a cover emotion. Rage and apathy are cover emotions. Okay? What are the kinds of emotions that are here down here? Okay? Well, like loneliness, not feeling cared for, abandonment, loss. Those are the kinds of emotions that you're going to feel when you touch this. Okay? So it's not like all this simple, but I'm just trying to break it down into the major categories so that you can understand and you can start experimenting on your own to see what kind of results you get. Okay? When you hit your grief and you start to cry, when you cry out your grief, your soul is changing vibration, which means it changes what you're attracting, it changes how you feel, and over time, it will literally change your physical body. You have the ability to heal your physical body through feeling out your grief, okay? So a cover emotion is anything that's not grief. Terror, rage, apathy, okay? A person who has suicidal thoughts is cycling through these cover emotions and never actually touching the grief. Now, I'll give an example once we go through this, okay? A person who has suicidal feelings is actually in addiction. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Well, a person who chooses to end their life violently, which is what suicide is, does not understand that the underlying emotional conditions that put them in that state do not go away when they enter the spirit world. Actually, if anything else, they will intensify and get worse because now you're committing a rageful act against yourself, which is totally unloving. Again, this is not my opinion. This is the Creator's view, okay? So you're going to have to feel out your emotions at some point anyway. Why not start doing it right here in the physical world, okay? I will talk in later videos about the differences between attracting events in the physical world and attracting events in the spirit world and the differences in intensity, okay? But please understand, and again, you don't have to trust me. You can experiment with this with yourself. Anything that you experience in the spirit world, in your sleep state, that's your soul experience. That's your soul attempting to manifest the same kinds of events to get you to feel out your emotions. Just like in the physical world. It's same laws apply. You're just not in a physical body. So we think that we can escape our problems by killing ourselves. And that's not the case. God does not agree with that, okay? So that's what I mean when I say you're in addiction. God does not respond to our addictions. If you are feeling like you want to kill yourself and you cry out to God, it's unlikely that God is going to respond to you. because you're not being honest with yourself about your actual emotions. You don't actually want to kill yourself. You actually have things underneath that are bubbling up and twisting and creating the situation where you think you want to kill yourself. Or maybe you really do feel you want to kill yourself, but you're in these cover emotions, which again is an addiction. And God does not respond to our addictions. Experiment with honesty. Okay? Now, here's my example. Okay? We have soulmates. And I've talked a little bit about that in previous videos, but I'll talk more about it in the future. But I know who my soulmate is. And she wants nothing to do with me. She wants nothing to do with me. Now, that's her choice. And it's loving of me to honor her free will. Okay? However, when she informed me that she no longer wanted to be in communication with me, it was extremely hurtful. And, I attempted to I did feel out a lot of my fear about feeling abandoned, about not feeling loved, and all this stuff. And a lot of this stuff gets back to our parents too. But there was something else that was underneath that I did not want to admit to myself. Okay? And so as I'm, holding in these suppressed emotions, I'm starting to feel suicidal thoughts, right? Like, not only does my soulmate not want to be with me, but the planet is in a disgusting, polluted state, and pretty much everybody walking around doesn't seem to care about it. Everyone wants to fight their own little personal fights, defending their own personal worldview, and meanwhile, our water's poison, our air is poison, and our food is sprayed with nerve gas. Okay? So, to me, this is the number one problem, or the number one set of problems that humanity collectively faces. We are living in pollution, and, in the United States, we incentivize and promote industries that destroy the environment and other people. Okay? So that also means it's very difficult to make a living in a loving way in this place. Okay? So you take all those things together, right? And it's like, I would just rather not be here. Well, it's true that I have felt that I don't want to be here, but there was aspects of myself that I was lying to. Okay? I was lying to myself because really, I had rage at my soulmate, and I did not want to admit to myself that I had rage at her. Okay? Because again, I am attempting to grow in love, right? And rage is not a very loving emotion, right? So, you see, I'm making judgments about my own emotions before I even feel them out. Okay? So, if you yourself also believe this, that it's non-loving to express anger or rage, if you were taught that as a child, then you may push this so far down that you don't even realize it's there. Okay? How was I able to tap into it? Well, when the supposed virus started breaking out, by the way, the virus is a real thing, but I'm not saying the virus is a hoax, but there's more aspects to the virus than most of us currently understand, myself included, but I'll save those topics for other videos, okay? I admitted to myself that I hoped she died of the virus. Yeah. Pretty non-loving, huh? Right? I'm projecting serious anger at my soulmate. And if she's actually my soulmate, then guess what? I'm actually projecting anger at myself. Well, what's suicide? A violent act against the self. Interesting, right? The second I admitted to myself, again, experimenting with honesty, that I actually wanted her to die, I started getting to my underlying terror and grief about events from my childhood. And now, I no longer feel these things. So, if you're feeling suicidal thoughts, okay, it's good to be honest with yourself about why you're feeling the suicidal thoughts. And then allow yourself to drill down even deeper, okay? So like, if you think you're sad, let's say you're a man and you feel like you want to kill yourself because you only want to be with this one person, and that like, if I have to be not with that person and face all this other stuff, I'd rather not be here. Try admitting to yourself that you hate that person and that you wish they died. I'm not saying act it out, but be honest with how you feel. And then once you're honest with how you feel, you stop cycling and you're able to start touching this terror and grief, okay? I feel like I wasn't as articulate with this topic as I have been with other topics, so I'm going to publish the video anyway, but I may come back to this in the future. But as with everything, I encourage you all to remember that our emotions exist in layers, okay? You definitely have this, you may not have apathy inside of you, but you definitely have anger inside of you. There's no question about it, okay? Experiment with honesty. Let's say you're sitting here watching this video and you don't believe me. Why don't you experiment with vocalizing it? Like, say to yourself, I am angry. And see how your body reacts to that, okay? This is part of the experimentation that really anyone can do, but I encourage you to do yourself. Because if you don't experiment, who else is going to do it for you? Other people can put things in your soul, but you are the only one that can remove them, okay? And again, the goal of all this, I'm not saying actually kill yourself. The goal of this is to get down here, to feel God's love, which is a substance. It is an emotional substance that the Creator sends to her children that is totally unique and does not feel like anything you've ever experienced. Good luck, friends. Love and peace.